Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting for August the 20th, 2024, 7 p.m. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we can all please remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and military members, please. Thank you. May be seated. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth?
Present.
Councilmember Wallace?
Present.
Councilmember Soto?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Present.
Mayor Moran?
Present.
For the record, all council members and mayor are in attendance.
Thank you. Next, we have closed session announcements.
No reportable action at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have changes to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, moving forward. Citizen comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the City Council on any item not on the agenda. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern and identify themselves. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with state open meeting laws, no action will be taken by the City Council this evening. Is there any citizen comments on the phone about any items that are not on the agenda? Hearing none, is there any citizen comments in the chamber for any items not on the agenda? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 7:02. Next, we have announcements and reports. Do we have any city staff announcements or reports?
None tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. City manager announcements and reports?
None tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have city council members announcements and reports. Mr. Wallace?
None.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. On the 25th of July, I went to the recreation meeting and we spoke about the Sweet Potato Festival, and they are looking for a lot of volunteers. So if anyone in the community would like to volunteer, or anyone here on the dais, please let myself know, or Jackie, or one of the recreation commissioners. We would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Soto.
Thank you. I just want to let you know that you skipped over the supervisor report. Just to let you know, for the record, he is not in attendance for a report tonight. Some of the community events happening. The VFW is closed for renovation until about October. The Merced County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce will have its downtown Mercado on September 5th. The All Alumni Reunion will also be September 28th. And as part of the Centennial Committee for Livingston High School, they will also be celebrating the 100th year anniversary on the weekend of homecoming, which would be October 11th through the 13th. The Lions Club meeting will be held tomorrow in the city chambers, tomorrow, August 21st. So if anybody is interested in becoming members to any of the nonprofit organizations within Livingston, just reach out. Also, I want to thank Mrs. Ratzlaff for handing us the Historical Museum newsletter. If you ever get a chance, those of you that have not been to the museum or know that we have a museum straight across the way here on Main Street, come visit it. I briefly skimmed through it. Very useful information. I'm glad to see that there is information in regards to the past and to the present events. There was wasn't sure if there was a LAFCO meeting on August 15th because I was in attendance with the Cal Cities API, which is Asian Pacific Islander Caucus. They held a women's leadership panel discussing serving on public boards and commissions. So I apologize for not for a report for the LAFCO, should they have had a meeting. I also am attending the Women's Caucus, which is also part of Cal Cities, amplifying voices of elected officials for September 18th. Some of these, I've attended these women caucuses prior, and it just empowers me more to speak on behalf of women, because being in an elected position is difficult for any one of us. It's a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of interfacing with the community. But one of the things that I find most difficult is hearing stories specifically from women who are almost retaliated against, harassed. I met with the mayor of Elk Grove, and she had received death threats because of her position that she held on council. So it's about empowerment, and I'm glad to see that there is women that are coming forward in the city of Livingston wanting to hold elected positions, because one of the things that I have faced is a lot of negative response, mainly silence, and that is a response when I ask and pose questions to the council as a sitting councilwoman, and it is often ignored or brushed aside. So as I went through tonight's agenda, I know this is going to be part of my report. I did notice that throughout the meeting minutes and reviewing most of them, there were many opportunities that I recalled certain instances of nights where there were accusations of types. And I just want this to be a point where women need to speak up. When there's retaliation, whether it's on the dais, in closed session, raising tones, because I've been faced with that just recently, council members raising their voice and yelling. And again, it's looked at as if women shouldn't do that. Women shouldn't talk back. Because I am the only woman, with the exception with Monica here, that's up here. So again, there are women throughout elected positions who get criticized, get accused, get harassed, name-calling, blaming, and yelled at, because sometimes men think they can get away with it. And that's not the case. We have a voice, we have a strong voice, and I'm encouraging women to use it. Run for those elected positions, whether it's on boards and commissions, because this is what the past meeting panel that I sat on was about. So, again, retaliation that's brought out in meetings, you may not see it, you may not hear of it, but it occurs. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Due to school starting last week, the last minute I was not able to attend the MCAG meeting because it was the same day all the teachers came back and ran into a bit of a glitch trying to get 1,200, well, not 1,200, but 500-600 teachers online. But other than that, I did attend the mosquito abatement meeting today. And this Thursday, they'll be spraying all the parks for mosquitoes. I've had complaints. And so they're going to hit all the parks and they're going to hit certain streets. Currently, due to a pilot not being available, they're not going to be doing any aerial spraying. They will be spraying by truck. So if you have mosquitoes to report, they have a website you can go to and just fill out a form. And they'll take care of it, or you can always leave a message with City Hall and I will take care of it too. So, we will take care of that. And also, last year, the mosquito abatement is working on building a new facility at the Beechwood location. Oh, excuse me. It's going along great. They're about 10-15% through right now. We're hoping that they get done much as they can before the rains come in. But it is moving forward. And Merced County, we've had 12 cases of West Nile virus. People, please, if you see standing water in the backyard, dump it. It don't take long for mosquitoes to come in, and instead we have one mosquito, now you have hundreds. So just do what you can, but most definitely please report it so we can keep everything down. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. For myself, a couple of things. I just wanted to say thank you to PD for during this week, and I know that I talked to a few parents with kids in schools, different schools, being at the elementary, the middle school, and the high school. And normally the first week of kids being back to school, it's very busy. A lot of traffic everywhere, and everybody trying to get to school on time, and it's always seems to be like there's sometimes in the past there has been issues, but this time it's like last couple of years I heard good things about it, and also to the parents that took a little bit longer time to make sure that they were not running late, but PD was very visible and helping out and making sure that everything flowed as best as possible. Also, earlier today, I had a conversation with a local business owner, and she mentioned that she was really excited and happy to be able to have had her kids be part of the swimming classes during the summer. And she was very skeptical because she never had her kids participate in the past before, but she was very happy at the end with how it was run. She was sharing that she learned that some of the kids in the swimming team from the high school and water polo were part of the lifeguards, and so it was a good combination. It was a good how they were earning a little bit of money and participating in community activity, and so she was very happy, and she wanted me to extend those how grateful she was to the recreation department and the city of putting in a lot of effort to make sure that programs like the swimming program and some of the other programs that her kids participate in continue. Not only for her kids, but even though that was the first year she did participate, or her kids, she was very happy. So thank you to Recreation and everything that goes behind the scenes to make sure things do try and run as smooth as possible, and to everybody else involved in the city. So, and as far as the report, that's it for me tonight. Next, we have the consent agenda. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine or non-controversial and will be enacted by one vote. Unless separate action is requested by a member of the public, the city manager, or city council member, there will be no separate discussion on these items unless members of the public, city council, or city manager request that specific items be removed. Public comment on consent agenda items shall be limited to 3 minutes. per person regarding of the number of items contained within the consent agenda. So at this time, is there any public comment on the phone in regards to any of the consent agenda items? Anyone in the chamber? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 7:15. So at this time, council, is there any questions, any motions on the consent agenda items?
I just want to make a blanket comment in regards to the minutes provided for us. I don't want to pull anything because it's just going to cover a wide variety of the 16 submissions for minutes that covers May 16th through December 19th. So going through those minutes, like I said, it brings back some items that are necessary to recall. Some of them, I know that a resident had reached out to me in regards to the minutes of September 19th when they had reviewed them themselves. And on the meeting of September 19th and throughout the minutes that were provided, there are some closed session items as well as September 19th in regards to the previous city manager, Jose Antonio Ramirez, in which September 19th is when he made an appearance at the lectern. And so it brought a question from a resident, well, a couple of residents, that had asked if Jose Antonio regularly visits Livingston because he was bold enough to come to our city council meeting and present a letter to this council. And so their question to me was, is there communication still with the city of Livingston or even council members enough for him to come to this chamber and discuss an item that we usually have in closed session? That's the concern of some residents that they want to know. They want to know who still has communication with the previous city manager. Also throughout, there were meeting minutes providing the city clerk position and the duties provided, and that was resolved August 7th. And tonight we do have Musio alongside us. So that was a really draining process to get through as a municipal code to the duties of the city clerk, and it all stemmed from somebody not doing the job and then delegating it. So I'm glad to see that we are moving forward and it's being resolved. December 5th, December 5th, 2023 was the first mention of the vendors, the restaurant on wheels, and tonight it is also on our agenda, but it took almost 9 months to get there. So my point is, on December 19th, there is the Sister Cities, which was formally introduced. And since that time, we've adopted 3 sister cities. We've put in a street sign. There's been various trips back and forth to Mexico. So the point is that there are some items that move quicker than others. And this amount of time that has passed with these minutes. So those of you that pay attention to the council meetings, in regards to the minutes, we don't get them often. So it's hard to go back. Watching the videos, again, is very time consuming, just as well as sitting here in the chambers and having to go through and listen and participate and engage if a person decides to do that. But it's been several months since we received a packet of minutes, and all that is summed up in there, and how many times and how often that things come back to the dais when There's a call for future agenda items. There are many that have yet to be addressed or completely ignored. And going through those again, going back to that part about silencing, especially my ideas, there are some that I've highlighted in the previous packet in the first meeting of August, and some that I've highlighted during this. So again, that's me having a sit-down talk and seeing who else will join me in getting some items to move forward that I wanted to discuss. But again, we want to come together as a community and make sure that everybody's items are fairly acknowledged, introduced, accepted, voted on, rather than just seeing things that sit. So that's the cover of the minutes, and that's my comment. Thank you so much.
Council, is there a motion? Is there a?
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you. So there's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Samra. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Roth. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth?
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace? Yes. Councilmember Soto?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Next, we have discussion and potential action items. Item number 20, discussion and direction regarding recognition of Lupe and Aurora Garcia.
Mayor, this was added to the agenda, I believe it was last council meeting, but there was a request to continue this item. This item was requested by Councilmember Roth and you, Mayor, to have this discussion related to the recognition of Lupe and Aurora Garcia. Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Roth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this has come up a couple times throughout their family. I've known them for years. And Aurora and Lupe, they've done a lot of great things for our community. Aurora ran the clinic for 57 years and participated in quite a few things in our city. Just for example, she was in the Ladies Auxiliary. She helped with the community with different activities. She was an advocate for the new clinic. And she was just an all-around great person. And since her and her husband passed away, I think the city should recognize that and possibly plant a tree or a plaque with them. Lupe, he was a graduate here of Livingston. He was in the Marines, the Korean War. He had a local barbershop for years. He was active in the police department, the recreation department, the volunteer fire department. He was a city council member. He was a mayor. He was on the school board. He was the founder of the Mexican-American Baseball League as well as the Livingston Youth Football League. So he did many things, him and his wife, and I would have thought that the clinic would have possibly named a building after Aurora, but unfortunately that didn't happen for all of her dedication and hard work. So I am asking this council and community, if it's possible, if we plant a tree with a plaque in their honor of those two people. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go
I
ahead.
can't remember the year, but when Mr. Garcia was the mayor, of course, he had the barber shop. I went to his barber shop, and I didn't realize he was the mayor, because, you're pretty young, Oh, he let me know he was the mayor because he didn't like how I parked my car up front of his shop. But heck of a nice guy. You couldn't ask for a better person. Aurora, of course, we all know her. And Mr. Roth's request, planting a tree and a small plaque, or a plaque, it's a very small ask. I am wholeheartedly in support of that. So whatever, Mr. Roth, you need, as far as second or whatever, I'm there with you. So I'm not sure what we need, or we need to give direction to the staff to find a tree. And perhaps we can get with the family and they can pick. And then only if the family wants, if they want to have a tree at one of the parks, or let them pick the park or location where they would like to have it. We should work with the family to have them pick the location. And I think, having a tree, we can never have enough trees, shade's good. So I think that's a small ask. Let's do it.
I'm in agreement as well, the Garcia family, and there's more to the Garcia family, but I believe our first step would be communicating those wishes with the family to get ideas from what they would like to see in honor of their parents or grandparents. But I'd also like, at this time, since Ms. Rasloff, you are here, I'd also like to do a memorial, be posted for the donation for the Livingston Historical Museum in their name as well.
Anyone else? Mr. Wallace, anything at this time?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. So at this time, we'll go out for public comment. Is there any public comment on the phone in regards to this specific item? Anyone in the chamber, please come forward.
Barbara Ratzliff, 1458 Main. I was very involved with the clinic way back when, and Aurora graduated from Livingston High School as well as Lupe. And so she, after Mrs. Schmall, who was a business teacher, recommended her to come and work like that with the clinic with Dr. Willihan, Dr. Bickle, I believe, and then Dr. Johnson. But being on the clinic for almost 30 years, I absolutely adored Aurora for what she did. And I'm sorry that she had to leave so early, and as well as Lupe. Lupe was very involved, and he and I were involved in the base community council out at Castle Air Force Base, so there was a lot of outgoing there. But again, Aurora was a wonderful person. The girls, I don't know if the girls came tonight, I mentioned, but when that happens, I hope the family does get together. So thank you for that very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais, 727. So yes, I think that's a great idea, and especially for someone, I personally did not get a chance to know the people, but just from hearing from what a few people have said, and then also somebody else in the community that also share very similar stories on who and what they did. Probably one of the first things would be to give direction to staff to come back with a proposal or some ideas on how this could be done, and then potentially, creating and having something in place to when this comes up again, it's already in place. And then at the same time, probably, Mr. Wright, you can probably reach out to the family and let them know what you have proposed and what's going to happen next. Potentially, if this council supports it, for staff to bring something back, or maybe you can meet with staff and put something together, some ideas, and then bring it back to the entire council, and then leave it in place so that way when this comes up again, there's a process in place as well.
Their daughter was supposed to be here tonight, and something must have happened, because she was going to speak on this as well. So I'll let them know. Thank you.
So with that, I'll be okay if the majority is okay to give direction to staff to put something together, some ideas. And then again, I don't know if this is something that has been done in the past or not, or maybe, some other agencies have done it, or just put the ideas together and then come back probably with the proposal for this council to look at and discuss and approve, so that way that process stays in place. And they don't have to reinvent the wheel again when this comes up. Council?
Mayor, one more thing.
Yes.
And possibly we'd do something with recreation for a scholarship in their name, something. So, just ideas, but I do like the tree and the plaque.
So probably that would be something that you can present to the recreation commissioners, and then they can consider it, and then they can see if it's something that they can do. But, you know, council, what's your wish? I suggest to give staff direction.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah, we're okay with it.
Staff, good?
Definitely.
Got it. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? We're good? All right, thank you. Moving forward with item number 21, discussion on the 4th of July event report. Is there someone to give a report on the 4th of July?
Yes, we should have Happy on the line. He will go through the financial component of this. I should add that there were additional items, or there was an update to the staff report that occurred. I believe it was updated yesterday afternoon. So the item that's currently online is the most up-to-date document. You'll notice that we've placed the changes in yellow online, which is the items that have that came in. It's kind of like a mustard yellow. It's the Jilton charge. That's the item that came in yesterday. I should also add that there are invoices that are still making their way to the city that we're still processing. There are some things that the council should get on their radar. I won't go through the entire components of the staff report, but there are some items that we are seeking council direction on. Number one is whether the council would like to continue using the ad hoc model to oversee and manage the event for potentially 2025. Another item is whether the council would like to, assuming that it would like to have an event in 2025, whether it would like to enter into an agreement with Paul Maher Shows for a longer contract term versus having a year-to-year contract with them. And then finally, there are some items that did not have agreements. Those invoices came up to the city after the fact, after the event. And that's for $1,000 for a band, another band for $600, Foster Love, which I believe is the nonprofit that provided the beer to the event, the various components of those expenses related to the beer, including the alcohol license, supplies, and then the sales tax. And then if there's any other items that the council would like to provide direction on. With that said, I believe we've got Happy on the line who can go through the expenditures for the mayor and the council as well as the community. Happy, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
So did you want me to go over each item one by one, or did you guys want me to kind of go over a specific item?
Happy, I think what makes sense is there's some broad categories that are listed out there. So for instance, you've got the venue, permits, insurance, marketing, entertainment, fireworks show, and then of note is some of the personnel expenses that weren't part of the original budget, but we can provide some context for that. So I think you've mapped out the categories. If you could start there, and then if the council has additional questions on specific line items, we can go through those as well.
Sounds good. So if you look at the first item of the expenses, is venues, permits, and insurance. So we had to pay Merced County Health for the permit fee for the vendors. We also had to pay insurance that we as the city provided for the whole event. And then also for Sunday, there was a rodeo that Ricky Ricardo had to get special insurance for. If we go into the marketing, we had the La Mejor Magazine, Radio Merced. So that was the two marketing pieces. For entertainment, so the entertainment piece, so these are the actual contracts that the city had with these specific bands. So Rhythm Blenders, Sound Remedy, Top Notch Talent, and then the Ricky Ricardo was for the Sunday show. So we paid Ricky Ricardo, and in return, Ricky Ricardo paid the musicians or the vendors that performed that day. So entertainment, that was basically that we didn't have a contract for, that we need council direction for, was Estilio PM and Extora Norteña for total basically $1,600, and those have not been paid at this time. Equipment rentals, we had sound, stage, and lighting. We also rented portable restrooms, fencing, canopies, tables, chairs, cooling fans, and then a portable water truck tank that we use to water down the parking lot facility. Staffing and basic contracts, the security guards we had for those 3-4 days. Explore payment for working the parking lot, and then Ashley Macias, which is a contract that she took care of all the vendors, basically from A to Z on getting the vendors, making sure that they're abiding by the rules, and basically the cleanup and all that stuff as well. So Foster Love, as Christopher mentioned earlier, we have not paid them, and we have no contract with them for them to run the, I think they ran the beer booth. And right next to the column, I have all the items that make up that $3,500. Food and drink, this is what our staff provided for our working staff and also our volunteers that did this for the past, for the event. Miscellaneous and other supplies, basic parking lot supplies were needed. There was a banner. There was a gas gift card that were purchased for the car show. Caution tape, staples, zip ties, and vendor deposits and reimbursements. So this was, if you look at the revenue top versus vendor deposit, basically we got a deposit from all the vendors. We made sure that all the items for their area were clean and everything was disposed, and we refunded all those deposits back to each of the vendors. So then we also have Geotin. Basically, that's a new item that came in. So that item came in on Friday after the staff report was already made. So that's what that's highlighted yellow, and that's a Geotin for the 235-yard bins. So additional expenses that are not part of the original budget that council had approved for $60,000 was basic the pyro payments for the fireworks, public works overtime, and also police staff for overtime. And also right now we don't know if there's any other staff. Staff is still receiving invoices, so we're not. I guess we don't have a list of all the items that are paid out or not. So we're still waiting on more invoices if there are any pending out there still. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions on any of these items.
Council, do you have any questions?
Yes, Mayor, I've got one. Ashley Macias took care of vendors for $8,812.50. What's the breakdown on that? Just curiosity.
I believe that agreement stipulates that the fees or the revenues generated, Ashley's entitled to a proportion of the fees that are generated.
Got it.
Which is, what is the breakdown? Like, what percentage?
I think it's 50%, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yes. I'm seeing head nods.
I don't know the exact number, but I think it's a split between them. I think 50-50 is what it is. Because if we look up top, vendor fees, we got around $18,100, and she's receiving I think whatever half of that is. And maybe if Jackie or Tony are there, they can probably jump in and help us out with this.
Yes, Jackie is here and she saying yes.
She does have a report to give, so she may approach.
So the total that was made was 18,100 because we did keep a $100 deposit from one of the vendors since they didn't show up all 3 days, which is also on our application. So we had a total of 19 vendors, including mine. So on mine, since I do get paid 50%, I don't pay myself for my spot. So that's why it's $375 for one spot of food. So we had a total of, for merchandise, we had 4 vendors get one space, which is $200 per space. We had 1 vendor get 2 spaces, which is $275 for one space. So the total that we made for merchandise was $1,075. For food vendors, we had 7 one space, that's including mine. So the total of that, taking off my $375, the total comes out to $4,875. We had 4 vendors get double space, which is $1,400. That comes out to $5,600. We had 3 vendors get 3 spaces, which is $2,150, which comes out to $6,450. So the total of that for food is $16,925. Then the total comes out to $18,000, and we did keep the $100 deposit. Each vendor paid their $100 deposit, so we did receive $1,800 from deposits, and $1,700 were refunded. Then the health department, certain amount of vendors pay the health department fee because they don't have an annual permit, and that total came out to $1,064, which goes straight to the health department. And then just on mine, so it is 50%, but since I didn't pay for my portion of the $375, I did receive $8,812 with 50 cents, and then the rest goes to the city.
Thank you very much. You guys did a good job. Thank you.
Council, is there any other questions?
In regards
Before-
to Jilton, I know that it was, I had asked previously when they did come and do their presentation, and they allowed for at least 3 events that they would, I don't know if you want to call it in kind or the use of the dumpsters at no cost was part of their contract agreement, is that there would be events that the city would hold that they would at least comp for us, and I know that I had brought that to the attention of the council, is if the 4th of July event could be one of those, because it is in their contract. So if,
Hey, Maria, I can take the lead on that. I'll contact Jilton tomorrow and then check on that if we can include the 4th of July in that and then remove that payment.
right on, thank you, Happy.
Did you guys get that?
Yes. Yeah. Council, any other, Mr. Lopez?
I was just going to say, good job, Happy.
Also, the direction that you need on the current invoices in regards to the entertainment on Sunday, I heard just recently stated that there were no contracts. However, our contract was with Ricky Ricardo. And so the process of which that occurred with the 2, I believe this first one here, Estilo PM is a DJ, and the other one is perhaps a band. So there's $1,600 there that we didn't expect to pay, at least being in the background planning of it. This Foster Love, I was under the impression that it was going to be ran by our local Knights of Columbus, not the 9363 organization, but the one, I believe it's in between Winton. It's actually Spanish version of the Knights of Columbus. That was the last that I had heard in the conversations of who was going to run the beer booth, because they've done it for us in the past. So this Foster Love, I wasn't aware of them. But that doesn't mean that we're not paying people. But looking at that breakdown, where did it go? So we paid, did they pay for all of this? The license, the beer, and everything, and then now we're having to pay, what was their percentage that we pay for their help?
So when I met with Ricky, Ricardo, and Julio last week, they did provide us receipts for these amounts. They did mention that $1,111.70 for beer. What this company did, or organization did, is they gave $2,500 as a deposit for the, the alcohol and the items that they got from, I think it's Daughtery beer, whatever that comes, Daughtery, I think it is. So then what they did is they just subtracted this amount from their deposit. So now they're asking us to pay them back for that merchandise that was sold. And yes, we do have receipts of the alcohol license and the other, the items the supplies that they bought. From what they told me, that it was supposed to be 25% of the total sales after the expenses are paid.
Thank you.
So, Happy, I see two amounts, and I'm just a little confused. So I do, and I think you explained it, but maybe I missed it. So I see an amount of $1398.40, and I believe that says 25% of the total sales after expenses are paid. And then in the section in the spreadsheet where it's highlighted in dark orange yellow, I see 3,373. So what you're saying is, if I understand this correctly, there was a deposit, and the total amount that Foster Love is asking for is $33.73 but we still owe them $13.98. Is that what you're saying?
No. So the colorful spreadsheet up there, that has a different amount because I included the $225 for the permit. If you look up top under the vendor permit insurance, I included the $225 up top, and right to the right it says part of the Foster Love reimbursement. So that 33 plus the $225 will equal the total amount. So the only thing, the deposit that Foster Love did was for the beer, the $2,500 they get for the beer, and then they got that invoice, and then they returned them the difference. So the invoice for the beer was $1,111.70. So what the company did is they gave Foster Love, they gave them the difference back. So now Foster Love is asking for that reimbursement from us for that beer.
Okay. I was hoping that Julio was going to be here so that he might have some answers to some of the questions from the council, because some of these numbers, well, you know, from my understanding, one is that entertainment, and then again, is that entertainment that is still unpaid for, which is the $1,600, is that only for Sunday entertainment? Do you know?
No, Sunday entertainment was that $12,500 that Ricky Ricardo took care of. These other two are Saturday stuff.
So because in the invoice for Estilo PM, I see two different charges. So it says 1 hour, 7/5, I don't know what that means, music, 500, and then like two 500 amounts totaling $1,000. And if I remember correctly, there was a band that I saw play on Saturday, and the same band came back and played on Sunday. So my assumption, and I'm just assuming because I don't know who they were, but maybe it's Estilo PM, and so I'm assuming that based on this invoice, they're charging $500 for their performance. This is just my assumption because I don't know. That's why I'm asking. $500 for Saturday and then $500 for Sunday.
Yes, I believe it's 500 per day.
Okay, and then this other one charge for 600, Grupo Historia Norteña. Okay, that's Saturday, but well. So then, okay, let me go back to the 2,500. So then the 1,500 should be part of the 12,500 under Ricky Ricardo. He should be responsible for that. And then we got to figure out who's going to pay the 500 for Saturday. And then the other 600, because I don't think those were part of on the original. And then again, I don't know, because if they played on Saturday, so is it also my understanding that either one of these groups don't have a contract, and so the city doesn't have paperwork on them?
No, from what I know, we have nothing for those two groups.
Okay, so I don't know, if we don't have a contract, then how can we pay anybody if we don't have a contract? I mean, legal? I mean, is that something that?
Generally, there's no oral contracts with public entities. All contracts, basically any contract for an amount in excess of $500 needs to be in writing. That's a California law. So typically, we would, with the other entities that performed, I believe we have agreements for those entities, including Ricky Ricardo. So it's unclear where these two entities came from and why they don't have contracts with the city.
Okay, and then, so just right off, I mean, there's a lot more questions that I have, but anyways, those are like the main ones that kind of jump up, because those were not anywhere in that I remember in the previous proposal. And then the second thing is we don't have contracts with any of them, but right off the back, I mean, I see that the one performance on Sunday, that should be, I don't see why the city needs to pay for it, because that should be part of the entertainment on Sunday, which the whole entire entertainment on Sunday was part of the agreement for the 12,500. And then I know that there was one band that did not perform on Sunday when I was there. So are we getting any credit for that band not playing? So there's more questions that I was hoping that either Julio or Ricky Ricardo was going to be here to see if we had those questions and hopefully answers to those questions. But now we just have questions but no answers.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Wallace.
You already brought up the topic I was going to be. If there's no contract, what liability do we have? I know we don't have to pay them under California law, but what if they were performing and they got hurt? They don't have a contract. What were they doing there? That would be my first question. Everybody that was going to be there should have had a contract in before the 2 or 3 days. I don't know where that got lost, but it just seems weird. You had people performing, did not have a contract with the city. That was my only biggest concern.
Have I gone for public? So at this time, I will go out for public comment in regards to this item. Is there any public comment on the phone? Hearing none, bringing it back to the dais. I'm sorry, to the chamber. Is there any public comment in the chamber in regards to this item or this report? Bringing it back to the dais at 7:54. So also something that I just noticed, I mean, not just now, but if I'm doing this math, these numbers correctly, it seems like there was a total of 61,000, I'm sorry, total expense of $73,832 plus $46,275 and the amount that was paid for the fireworks and city staff overtime, including public works and PD and any other overtime, which totaling 46 plus 73, roughly that comes up to about $120,107.63. When the initial proposal, the idea of doing this 3-day event was going to be no more than 60,000, if I remember correctly. Then I got to go back into my notes, but that was supposed to include any city staff overtime, including PD. But now it's not 60,000, we're looking at 120,000. And so if we add the 46 to the negative 12,000, based on these numbers here, we're looking at 60,000 additional expenses that the city is paying, in addition to everything, all of the revenues. So when it was supposed to pretty much almost cover itself. But anyways, that's just what I'm seeing. Maybe I'm wrong. But also going back to the staff report, direction is, well, one, I'm not sure what to do with those invoices that have not been paid, that now they're being presented to be paid, for which we have no contract, so we cannot pay something that we don't have a contract for. And I'm assuming that even if council authorized for those charges to be paid, so even if council authorizes, let's say, one of those payments to be paid, there's no contract, what needs to be done?
To be honest, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is probably an item that I would need to bring back to council to talk about in closed session, because there may be liability issues. Ideally, I guess the biggest concern initially is because these entities don't have contracts, not only do we have the issues with California law, and we may even have issues with our own municipal code on purchasing requirements that weren't complied with. I'm not saying that staff did anything outside, but the fact that we don't have these things in place that we do for the other entities is troubling. What I would suggest is allowing the city attorney's office to put together a memo and have a discussion in closed session with council, because there could be liability issues resulting in litigation, relating both to payment and or non-payment of these fees.
Mayor, if I could add a couple things.
Yes, go ahead.
I believe that the bands that performed where there were not any contracts were due to cancellations of other bands. And so that's why there was no way for us to have those contracts in place, because based on discussions with Julio, they were fill-in standing performers. You'll note that whether it was Rhythm Blenders or the other bands that were noticed, included in the backup, we all had individual agreements with those vendors and those bands, because that was the expectation that we had conveyed, that we need agreements for all of the performers, just as the practices Roy has mentioned. So that's the background, as I understand it, as to why there were no agreements with them. They were fill-ins.
So, with that said, I would probably feel comfortable with not moving in any direction at this time with any of the items here, because, and then, so maybe we need to bring this back to closed session first, and then probably if we need to request or ask people that might have answers to our questions to be part of those sessions, and then so we can be more clear on how we might be able to proceed.
What I would suggest is allowing the city attorney's office to work with staff to try to gather some more information. If there were exigent circumstances that may qualify for an exception to the general rule regarding contracting requirements and even our procurement policies. And then trying to kind of get more clarity on exactly what led up to the engagement of the, both the entertainment and potentially, I believe, foster love. Based on information that Councilmember Soto provided, it appears that there was supposed to be another entity. So finding out where that change occurred, who authorized the change, would be important. Yes, Miss Jackie, please.
Foster love. So I do know that I did get a phone call from the Knights of Columbus, and they could not do it. They told Julio they could not do it. And I do believe that this nonprofit, Foster Love, was like the last resort if they wanted to have beer at the event. And so they were willing to come in kind of at the last minute, and they ran the show, ordered the beer, and the whole thing. But I don't, it wasn't intentional to slide any other group, because he did knock on doors trying to find other groups that would do it. And, people are just not have enough manpower to volunteer to do it. So this group stepped in.
And so actually, I do have a question, and then I don't know if anybody here or staff or Happy on the phone can answer this question. So this organization, okay, so let me go back. The people that were working the beer booth, were they paid by the city, or are they being paid by the nonprofit? Happy, do you know?
We have not paid them, as you see on the report. That's the payment that they're wanting from the city. They want 25% after the expense that paid. So as of right now, we have not paid them anything.
So, but my question is specifically the people that were working the beer booth. There was about 5 or 6 people throughout, especially on Sunday. There was like 3 or 4 people on Saturday. Did those people get paid by the city? As far as you know?
No, they did not.
I'm sorry?
No, they did not.
Okay, so then okay. All right. All right, so I guess, council, comments, questions?
I have a comment,
suggestions? Go ahead, Mr. Wallace.
I got to recheck my math, but you said about 120,000 and some odd cents. I came up with 119,000 and something. But you were mentioning the 60,000. The fireworks, Jackie, aren't the fireworks paid out of your budget? They were not included in that. So they come out of the 30,000, right?
They come out of a separate account. So that was, my understanding was that it wasn't intended to come out of the 60,000 because it had been previously budgeted for in the city's budget already.
Correct, that's what I understood. So it was really 90,000 that they had to work with. So we're basically $30,000 we lost. That would be approximate, Happy?
Yes, but initially when we were doing this discussion on this event, I don't think the discussion for city personnel was discussed, meaning the overtime for PD and overtime for public works.
Yeah, and if I recall, it's not necessarily that we invoice ourselves for the overtime incurred by Public Works or the police department. The overtime allocations for the entire city budget are included when the council adopts the budget. So there is some sort of estimate that goes into it on the front side as to what they estimate those personnel costs to be for putting on these events. So it's, for all intents and purposes, accounted for in the city's overall budget.
Yes, and I think this is good practice to be able to have everything that it costs to have an event, whether it comes from different budgets, and this gives a good overview of what this one event, what the cost of the one event is, for planning purposes in the future. So, for one, I think before we do anything with any in this report or item, we should allow legal and staff to continue working on this and find, hopefully, answers to some of the questions that were asked tonight, and then either bring this back in closed session if needed. If not, then we can bring it back to open session, and then we can go from there. My recommendation, from what I hear, would be best. Council?
I just want to thank Julio for stepping in and stepping up and coordinating this event in such a short period of time, working with city staff to organize events. We do have some glitches that need to be resolved, apparently, but we knew that going into this. We also knew that $25,000 was going to be allocated with a 3-year contract. It's in our meeting minutes from May 16th, 2023, that is tonight, that a contract was approved. So we already knew that we were spending that money and it came out of a different account. In regards to the overtime, we did hear from our city manager that those payments, those were discussions that we had among the groups that sat at the table about the overtime and how some of the shifts would be worked, that they would be on site. I don't know the breakdown of the schedules or how many staff members that it included, not specific, but we did anticipate paying overtime for the event, especially over a holiday weekend. So to say that we lost money on this, I don't believe that it's quite true. I think it rejuvenated the spirit of coming together as a community, having the community look forward to attending an event where they could purchase items from our vendors that were well coordinated with our vendor coordinator, Ashley. Again, there are some items in there that needed to be more in depth, but given the time constraints, I know that trying to get the 4th of July festivity event off the ground, at that time it was Mayor Aguilar, when we brought it forward the first time around to get it started, and this was a post-COVID event, and there was a lot of pushback from trying to get it off the ground. Well, it finally did happen. Big debate where we were only going to be allotted $35,000 to run this event. So getting those numbers, as you said, really helps out for us as a council and for the community to know how much expenses go towards it and how much revenue could be made had we been allowed the time, because we weren't. We spent so much time trying to put together a committee, and it went back and forth, and just the conversations of holding back on allowing us to get it off the ground in the first place. So coordinating the event with all the powers that be, those that came out and participated and volunteered, thank you so much. Those that gave time, those that even gave us sponsorships and in kind. It takes a lot. Being on the committee a few years back, so for instance, 2015, it takes 2 years at least, because it's constantly going. Should we have had better planning, perhaps we would have had backup entertainment. There are suggestions that can be made for next year's event, should we move forward with this. There are a lot of things that we can work on, and we should have already, as being part of the committee, we were already working on it for the next coming event so that we don't run into issues of who's doing what and who's paying for this last minute item. We know what's going to happen, we anticipate it, and we budget accordingly. So we did budget for overtime. Pyro's contract was signed last year, so those expenses were allotted for. It's just when you see it on paper and having it explained in depth of how they occurred and why, we still need to have that conversation. So overall, I believe the community responded well to the event. There is a report from city staff, things that we can work on. But with planning and allowing us to come together, again, it takes a community to put an event together. And it's already been said that volunteerism, we need to come together if we want to hold events at this level, because it is a worthy event. It was, before COVID, was the largest fireworks show in the valley. And one way that Livingston can take pride in inviting other communities and spectators to come and enjoy our fireworks show is being active and being willing to participate in a positive way so that we can continue having events for our city.
Mr. Mayor, can I say one more thing?
Yes, Mr. Wallace, go ahead.
I want to thank Ashley. She was the only one present at 5 o'clock on Sunday that on the ad hoc committee running around taking care of people, and you were the only one there. My only issue with Sunday, when you changed the time from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, nobody knew. I happened to show up at 3 and I was telling people, no, it's posted, come back at 5. But it would have, and I don't know why I didn't, I should have got off my duff maybe and gone and got a sign, just put come back at 5, but I didn't think of it. But that was the issue, because not a lot of people have access or didn't check the website because they were already on the way. And that's one of those things Councilwoman Soto talked about that will be something that can be addressed. But you did a lot of work on that Sunday. Thank you for all your help. That was all there.
Again, it's something that many of us weren't prepared for and at the last minute, but taking into account that the temperature that day was more than scorching, I believe it was in the best interest of our residents and our business community to delay the time for that so that it was just a bit cooler. So again, we anticipate the weather, better planning for next time, and then everybody will know.
Council, anything else? Good. All right, thank you, everyone.
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
there are a couple things that we are seeking direction on. I did understand that probably not wanting to take on the expenses for the contract, or for the items that we don't have contracts for, but items 1 and 2 for a future event, if the council would like to have this in 2025, using the ad hoc model to oversee and manage the event, and then 2, entering into long-term agreement with Paul Maurer Shows for the carnival mayor.
I am of the opinion that I think probably this can come back for further discussion for the council to decide if the ad hoc model is something that we would want to continue working with. But if we are to decide now, I think that we should look at other options other than the ad hoc, and see what the council decides. This being the first time, I think there could be other ways that things could, as an experiment, it was good for being the first time. But I'm okay with either one. One, moving forward with not working with the ad hoc model, or 2, just to bring it back until our next meeting. And the same with, I think we can, then, I don't know what the council wants to do with item number 2. What the majority of the council wants to do with item number 2.
We've actually come with more questions than we first started, so I'm willing to say to wait till that next meeting, that way we have more answers and we can all take the action together all at once.
I'd also like to reach out to Paul Maurer and to see when his drop dead deadline for a response would be, because he does contract typically a year out, and we're already in August. So if we want to utilize his carnival show, we need to solidify that so that he can get us on calendar. Another recommendation would be to see how we as a city can manage organizing and putting together this event, as it is a component of the city, basically ran by a city, utilizing its staff from law enforcement, public works, and recreation. And of course, Ashley is part of the recreation component. So we're already utilizing staff in its capacity to help and assist with this event. So that could be an idea, bringing that forward, is having an overall event organized by the city with volunteers. Because I think that would alleviate some of the last minute policy type concerns and issues that come forward.
Council, anything else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Everyone had great questions here tonight, but if we do bring this back, I'd like to see more of the people here, the vendors that we are asking questions about, so they can give us answers. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Wallace.
It would be, if before Councilwoman Soto works out to get in touch with Paul Maurer for deadline, the biggest thing we need to know is how many days are we thinking of? 4th of July is on, are we only doing a Friday, Saturday? You're doing a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? That's something that I think she needs to know before she contacts Paul Maurer. That would just
Paul
be my-
Maurer typically schedules out a week's worth at a time, because it does take a week for him, not a week, but he's here for the entire week, starting the Monday setting up. So keeping that in mind, when he does set up, he typically schedules for a 3 to 4 day event to make it worth his time, plus the revenues that come in with ticket sales, that's a win-win for us. Had we taken advantage of the ticket sales for pre-sale, because we used to have it so that it started in, I want to say April, with the kickoff. We used to have the Kite Festival as well. So that was the kickoff to pre-sale of tickets from City Hall. And we were actually, ticket sales were very slow during the June-ish time. So if we had a group of people that were able to sell those tickets ahead of time, we probably would have generated more revenues. But the tickets were sold, pre-sale and on-site. So if you look at the revenues that were brought in, we could do better, but again, that takes time and that takes planning of everybody doing a little extra, because I do believe that they were only sold in City Hall, and so thank you for your team of people, Jackie, that ran and sold the tickets at the window. But in the past, we also had different entities within the city of Livingston that helped promote that. We did have a promotion from Palomar that had ticket giveaways, so I don't think we took full advantage of that either.
Okay, council, anyone else, staff? Jackie? I see you.
So I don't think that one of the things that we take into consideration is the inflation. People don't have the extra money to spend. There were a lot of things that we've done, as we have done in the past, except for going to other businesses, which really those businesses that sold did not sell like we did at City Hall. People don't have the spending money that they've had, okay? It was hotter than heck. I mean, I think that even the amount of money that we collected was outstanding for all of the things that had come against us. One of the things that I feel like is kind of a downfall in all of our special events is that we want to offer a free event at a Cadillac version for our residents, and I admire that. That's wonderful. But as we're looking at all these prices and everything else, we have to understand that there's a cost to doing all of that. So, you know, I think about even with the Sweet Potato Festival coming up, we're going to be charging $1. I've already heard people crying about it, but we have, you know, $3,200 in a fence for their protection, and we've got to recoup it somehow. We don't have the sponsors. We don't have the luxury of getting thousands of dollars in sponsorship to help cover these costs that are going to have to be paid somehow. So, you know, we really need to take these things into consideration as we're forming our events, is that if we want to cover the cost. I mean, it blew my mind, because I was there for Friday, that people parked a half a mile away so they didn't have to pay $5 to park in the parking lot. And I thought, how sad, you're here for a free event, you're here for a free fireworks show, but you can't even pay $5 to park. That actually benefits one of our greatest allies, which is the Explorer program, which provides free security for many of our events. So I'm not sure how to educate the folks on all of that, but at least you guys know there are expenses that need to be covered, and somehow they need to be paid for. And that's my story. So.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Jackie. I can agree to that. I know that was part of the planning, or one of the suggestions at one of the meetings. However, it's hard to get volunteers, and I know it's a tough issue, it's a delicate issue to see who's going to help volunteer with the handling of money. So without having that in the plans, because we did used to charge for the event are at least take donations. Even donations help if we don't get the sponsorships. So I think we do need to rally together as elected to support our city in the events that are held, to talk with our businesses. And again, I know that was something that I brought up as to one of the reasons why a Chamber of Commerce can help us out that way, and event planning. So there are other ways that we can look at this, but charging for the event and having the community understand that this is for all of us. It's a free event, and just going through that area, like Jackie said, it's bothersome. It really is, and it happens year in and year out. We're asking the community to help out, and again, we have other issues that we ask our community to also participate in. But this is a fun event I get it. We get in crisis situations, then we get we have to have that kind of balance where we ask for our community. And so, point being made, yes, charging or finding a way to offset some of the costs within our community, within our residents, because it does benefit everybody.
Mr. Lopez, do you have enough direction on the item 1 and 2?
I think I do, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward, item number 22, discussion and direction regarding notices of the proposed increased solid waste fees and rates for a majority protest process in accordance with Proposition 218. Mr. Santos?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Council will recall, this item was continued from the prior council meeting to today's meeting, and was continued from an earlier meeting when the city was waiting for information to be provided by Jilton regarding how it establishes its solid waste rates. The city has now received that information. It was included as part of an update provided to council. And as previously directed by council, staff was to bring forward a Prop 218 rate setting for the administrative fee component of the solid waste rates, which currently isn't being charged to customers. But as part of this process and waiting for that additional information from Jilton, and now the city having received that information, it would be the city attorney's office recommendation to do a combination rate setting for both the solid waste rate established by Jilton and the administrative fee component of the solid waste rate that covers the city's costs for processing the solid waste services, meaning both customer service, billing, staff time, et cetera. But with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions from council.
So basically, it's just to confirm that for you to move forward and come back to council with the breakdown of the rate study.
What we would do is we would bring back effectively the mailer that would go to the parcel owners that would be subject to the fees, and a set of guidelines on how how things would be calculated. I mean, tabulated, any sort of protest. How those items would be received by the city, how they would be tabulated. So we would bring those items back to council for approval, If council approved those items, then they would be mailed out to we would mail them to both the customers and to the property owners, because sometimes those two people can be different. And so we want to ensure that every property owner gets a copy, because each property is subject to, at some point, even if it's an empty lot, at some point they could be, if it's developed, subject to having solid waste services. So it's the preferred practice to send it to the property owners for the majority protest. And then it would be a hearing, rate setting hearing would be set for a minimum of 45 days after the notice is sent out to the ratepayers and the property owners.
So that would probably be the first part of the process. You're coming back with what's going to be sent out. It'll probably be 2 to 4 weeks plus 45 days, and then how long? Well, in summary, from now until the end, when this is done, it's like 3 to 4 months.
Correct, roughly. At least a minimum of 60 days. On the higher end, 90 is a typical time frame for a turnaround on this kind of process. Typically, we don't recommend a formal rate study for this type of franchise, because the franchisee is the individual who sets the rates for the service that they're being provided. Versus in this situation, unlike wastewater or water, it's not a service being provided by the city. So typically, what we do is we provide the customers, the ratepayers, and the property owners with the rate being quoted to the city as part of the RFP process for those services.
Okay. Council, questions at this time before I go for public comment?
Mr. Mayor, at the August
go ahead.
6th meeting, I had requested that staff contact me regarding questions. I'm still waiting for staff to contact me, maybe due to scheduling, I'm not sure, but I have not been reached out by staff.
So at the meeting, the request was that you were going to reach out to me to coordinate the meeting.
Mr. Lopez, I think it serves staff's purpose when they need something, they have no problem calling. When I request that I be contacted because I want to set up a meeting with staff, that I don't get the same acknowledgement, I don't get the same contact. So I'm sorry, but when staff needs something, I get 4 or 5 calls a day, but when I ask for something, I don't know. I just don't think that's the way it should work. And to me, because I was never contacted, if you go to vote, I will vote no. Because I don't want to get into anything beyond other than I was not contacted. I don't want to get into it.
And I'll, respectfully state that at the dais, you had said, I will reach out to you.
No, I said, Mr. Lopez, please reach out to me so we can get with your staff and answer my questions. You had stated that contact somebody to get on your schedule, but I'm sorry, city manager could definitely reach out to a council member that wants to settle with the staff. You have called many times, and I didn't have to go through anybody else to talk to you. This warrants the same amount of courtesy. Thank you very much.
So specifically, are you asking, just to make sure I understand this correctly, so, no, hold on, just give me a second. So you want this process to wait until you have
I will.
I'm just,
No.
Just to be clear
Well,
for
all I'm
people.
saying is, because I have no answers other than the last meeting, so based on what I don't have the answers to, I'm ready to vote no. Because if I don't have the questions answered, then I cannot in any way move forward. Thank you.
so to vote no on moving forward with legal,
No, what I'm saying is, until I can sit down with staff and get my answers, I'm not going to vote for this. That's all I'm saying. I'm nothing more than that.
So there are other council members here, and I don't really quite understand the stance here because it's almost as if it's, you did this to me, I'm going to do this to you. If this happens here, then this is what I'm going to do with that. And it's almost as if we're setting the stage to play favorites. I don't see, it shouldn't be happening because I know in the past, Paul, that you have said plenty of times, we don't discuss things with staff. That's why we have a city manager. The city manager works directly with his team to convey messages to the persons that he oversees. That is our role. We don't participate, or we shouldn't at least, because Lord knows what happens behind the scenes when council members interact and work with members of city staff. So again, playing favorites, and we don't want to do that, but it does happen. There's been record of it. So working directly with the city manager, I get that. So I'm not clear. We'd have to go back and look at the audio for the meeting because it's a whole he said, she said, and now it's a I'm not going to participate. So with that being said, I know that we approved this contract with Jilton already, and part of their process was to have an administrative fee. And I know that that part was discussed at length, and it was also said at the August 6th meeting where it was clarified to us is that the residents have been paying this all along, but for transparency reasons, they separated the administrative fee from the waste part. So it appears as if they're paying extra. They're not. And then based on what I heard city attorney say was that we're going to do this twice now. I don't know when the next formal 218 was supposed to take place, but if you can, Roy, I heard you say something that this is not the formal process, it's going to happen, but we're doing something with it now.
Sorry, just so I clarify, this is the formal process, but what I was saying is typically with a franchise service that the city is not providing, we don't do a rate study because the entity that's establishing the rate is the franchisee, correct? Versus, our wastewater or our water system, those are services that the city directly provides. So before doing the Prop 218 hearing or rate setting, you typically do a rate study for 5 years, add your CPI, and then approve that, and you do it every 5 years. Here, what we would be doing is, since effectively it's a new contract, new rate, the ratepayers would be approving the or not. They would be considering the new rate being provided. It would be subject to majority protest, which is the requirements of Prop 218. They would receive the 45-day notice, which was required by Prop 218. And then at the end of that, the rates under the contract, I'd have to go back, but I believe the rates under the contract are subject to CPI. So typically with the CPI adjustments, those don't come back or have to come back every time the CPI adjustment is triggered. Jurisdictions vary. Some do it every year. So it just depends on the jurisdiction. And the reason, I would say the reason this wasn't previously recommended is because we had that initial separation between the city and Jilton when it came to how it formulated its rates. We now don't have that separation because we've actively asked them to provide their rates and a breakdown of how it's created. So receiving that information triggers other requirements. Once you have that information, you can't unring the bell. And so that's why our recommendation is do the Prop 218 because we've now asked for that information. It's now in our possession. We should go forward accordingly.
Council?
Yes,
Go ahead.
this is for Roy. Roy, how much more money are the residents going to have to pay?
Oh, I'm sorry. I believe please don't quote me, I have to go back. The administrative fee, if I recall correctly, I believe it was around $13 and change. I have to go. So the overall rate increase from the prior blended rate, I believe now we're at, Christopher might know better, I think we're at $45, right, or is it $35? For the new service for just the solid waste service per the RFP. And then there's, like I said, roughly another additional $13 in administrative fees that would bring, I believe, just shy of $50 a month for the solid waste. And I believe that's almost a $20 a month increase from the original, I believe was right around $30.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, one question on that. If we're going to figure the city's cost to put the water bill and send it out, and if we decide we don't want to do that, are we going to be able to tell what Gilton's going to charge us extra? Or they can't charge us extra for mailing their bill out?
So right now, the franchise agreement doesn't cover those services, so we would have to negotiate those services with Jilton. It could be more, it could be less. We don't know because it's unclear if they have the infrastructure to do the services that we do right now. And so we don't know what that cost would be if the city didn't perform the service and asked Jilton to do it, or if we did an RFP and tried to bring in another provider to do the customer service and the billing. The administrative fee, staff made a valiant effort to try to be which is required under law, reasonably proportionate to the actual cost of the service being provided. So the goal of the administrative fee is not to make a profit. That would be illegal. We track, and there's multiple components to it, but we try to track exactly how much time members of city staff spend on solid waste services, and the cost of mailing, phone calls, things of that nature. And they share a percentage of the city's overall costs to run the city. So we try to break it down so it's just exclusively the actions, whether, the costs for this service and the staff time for this service is what makes up the administrative fee.
Thank you.
If I recall, Jilton did say that we would have to negotiate that part, that is something that they do offer as a service. But the city of Livingston had been providing for that, and I believe that we've budgeted for admin fees for the next 3 or over the year. It's in the budget, I just can't find where it is. But we are still paying for those admin fees, it's just not coming out of the fund. It's coming out of the general fund.
Correct. So the one benefit that the city has that it didn't have before is we do have the franchise fee that the city approved. But the cost of the administrative fee is being paid from the general fund. There is additional monies to help offset that, but it is coming from the general fund.
And
You know, we as a council should ask ourselves, we want more than almost double the people's rates. And we just said, no worries, city manager can't find the time to talk to somebody. I'm sorry.
so, you know, as I was doing some calculations and just information. So roughly, not exactly, but there's like, you know, we're talking about there's probably about $13 that we're looking at for this, possibly to increase per month. And so currently there are roughly about 35 or so households. That's about $45,000 a month that it's currently being covered by the general fund. And if we multiply that times 12 months, it's roughly about $546,000 that will be covered by the general fund. While we spend more time in going through this process, and, you know, but and just to be clear, just for, you know, if this question comes up with the residents, we are not going out looking for a different rate from another provider. I mean, we already have, like was said, we already have a contract with Gilton. There's nothing we can do about that. And then plus, Gilton was the lowest contract that came before us out of 3. So no, we are not going for another contract. That's done. What has been asked of the council to go through this process, and then again, I think it's been 4 or 5 months already. And this was done by the majority. I mean, this was approved by the majority just to be able to kind of, you know, do an extra process that we were not required to do by law. But I'm just saying, just moving forward, just keep in mind that every month that we are not collecting those fees, the city general fund is paying for it. So the residents are still paying for it because it's their fund. The general fund is their money. So, you know, eventually, if we continue in this path, if it takes a year to go through this process, it's going to be around $550,000 that the general fund is going to have less in. And then it's going to take us more time to collect those funds again. It's basically savings for the city, that the city has, for the residents. So to say that the residents are not paying for it already, they are via the general fund. So roughly it's about $45,000 every month, more or less, but,
Mayor?
you know.
We also snuck in something we never did before, franchise fee on the ratepayers. That was sneaky, that should never been done. And to me, when you say, you know, it's one thing for administrative fees, but we never charged a ratepayers administrative fee. So let's not talk about that money right there, franchise fee that we shouldn't, I don't think we should be collecting is offsetting some of that cost, if not all of it. So let's not go and say the general fund, because every city manager does this, nothing against the current interim. They always try to find how they can squeeze the most out of their tax ratepayers. And to me, franchise fee should never been put in. If the franchise fee wasn't there, I wouldn't have any trouble with administrative fees, but we're double the increase on the ratepayers. There's no benefit they're getting by charging franchise fees. That's nothing that does not add to the quality of the service other than padding our own books here. And until I get it, you guys can vote any way you want, but I will vote no.
And then again, just to be clear, you know, and I believe I understood Mr. Santos correctly, the city is not supposed to profit on those rate fees. We're just supposed to collect what the fee and the cost is. That's it. We're not, just give me a second, please. Let's be respectful. So I'm just trying to digest, and I'm analyzing. If I'm not correct, please, this is a good opportunity to educate us here and everybody else that is watching. So I heard that with the fees that we collect, we're only supposed to cover the cost that it takes the city to do the work, not to make profit, because otherwise that is illegal. Isn't that what we're trying to do, Mr. Santos, right? You just said it.
Yes, for that. So there's a difference between the franchise fee and the administrative fee. So for an administrative fee, any sort of fee that's charged by the city for services, the cost needs to be reasonably proportionate to the actual cost of the service being provided. It can't be a for-profit venture. If it's a for-profit venture, it would violate the law. For a franchise fee, it's a different measure. They look at whether the franchise fee is a reasonable estimate of the value of the franchise. When the city council approved the agreement and the franchise fee, staff believed that the percentage, which I believe is 15%, was a reasonable estimate of the value of the city's franchise for providing Jilton with exclusive services or exclusive access to the city's residents and being customers, and exclusive access to the city's roadways, alleyways, et cetera, to provide those services. So they're calculated kind of in two different ways. What is before the council at this time is just the admin fee, which is that actual cost of service fee, and then a rate setting based on the fact that new information that was provided by Jilton, taking that Jilton's rate out to the ratepayers and the property owners, so that they can provide a majority protest if they so choose. Similarly with the admin fee, it would also be the same standard, which is a majority protest.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Prior to this sneaky franchise fee, City of Livingston never charged a franchise fee. Yet, we were able to pay for sweepers. Everything was all calculated into the cost. A franchise fee serves no purpose other than to pad us. That was never done in all these years. So, yes, technically and legally, you can charge it. And I've said it before, and I've said it, and I'll say it again. Just because it's legal doesn't make it right. We should not be charging our residents who are suffering, hurting, barely making their bills, a franchise fee so we can make more into our general fund somewhere. That is just plain wrong, because it leaves nothing for residents to get out of that franchise fee. They're not benefiting by it. Only the city is. They're just paying extra, and that's just wrong. And I've said it, and you guys can vote any way you want. But I will go to every voter, and I will tell them exactly what this council's doing.
Council, any other questions, comments, directions? So Roy, just to be specific again, after a lot of information, what is the direction that you need?
Sorry, I'm asking for direction from council on whether to bring back for council consideration the processes and the notice that would be prepared for establishing the administrative fee for solid waste services and for consideration of the new rate that Jilton is going to be, or is currently charging for solid waste services pursuant to the RFP that the city previously awarded for pursuant to the contract and RFP that Jilton was awarded.
Okay, council, do you have questions on what the direction is needed?
I believe what was stated already, that we have to move forward with this since it's already been brought out to council.
What I will say is, council, it is at council's prerogative whether to move forward or not. The council previously had directed the city attorney's office to go forward with the administrative fee. But in order to save city resources, I wanted to bring this item back to council for direction because I thought it was in the best interest of the city to also include the rate, Jilton's proposed rate, and add that component in. So that's why this item is before council in the manner it is.
So at this point, we have totally confused our residents, because what we've done is that something that was in place based, I don't even remember, it was maybe 2 months ago when we sat on this dais and Gurpal mentioned the Prop 218 and how it was unfair that residents were coming to him and saying that the rates went up and we didn't give proper notice. And that night, I think we were, based on that information and the urgency of that matter, we did give direction and we did put off having the new utility rate. Well, our residents received their utility bill, and that prompted Gurpal on the dais to say, oh no, we can't do this, this is wrong. But without that background knowledge is that we've been doing that administrative fee all along, this was just a better way of informing the public, letting them know that this payment is here and this other fee is here, separating them out, because they are used to one flat fee that wasn't transparent enough. So again, with the idea that we need to be transparent as to what our residents are paying for, but then we're here 2 to 3 months later with oh no, we're not going to move forward with that because, well, there are other council members here, but an item that was brought forward, an urgency, where we delayed that and had it come back and made the decision like, okay, so this makes it fair. So it's already been done. So moving forward, putting it out there saying this is what your residents are going to pay for, this is something new, but it's not, that you've been paying for all along. They haven't been paying for it in a couple of months, then to put it back out there for them to pay is just, they believe that they're saving when they've been paying it. So I again, if it comes back on the utility, a separate fee, which is how I believe Mr. Lopez had wanted the transparency to be, is that we have to separate these fees out so the residents know, like it itemized the payment. So I think in transparency, we need to do that. But to say this was urgent that night, we want the residents to believe that we're saving them this amount of money, but it's still being paid for. So again, we're confusing that it has to be done this way, then taking it back because, I don't know, someone's feelings were hurt.
I believe that night that I brought up the franchise fee, Councilwoman Soto agreed with me that we should not have been charging franchise fee. You had initially agreed with me, and you're perfectly allowed to change your mind if you want, but you also did not agree with the franchise fee. To me, franchise fee was never charged. It should not be charged. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. All these years, residents never paid a franchise fee, and we always had a franchise, if you want to call it that. To me, that's wrong. We were rushed. If it wasn't for that last-minute panicky votes that night, I had more time, I would never have voted for it that way. I'm sorry, but the franchise fee needs to go, or this is not going to work.
That contract was brought forward with the company. There was 2 that were present that night. They came because of an RFP that was put out. Last year, it's in our minutes. We put out for an RFP
Mr.
for
Mayor,
3.
I'm done
still
with discussion.
talking.
I'm done with discussion. Thank you very much.
Okay. They came, they presented, and we voted. Jilton run the contract that night. So that within their contract was there with the franchise fee. We voted on it. So to say that we didn't know it was there must be our bad, because we did award that contract to Jilton. But once the utility bill hit our residents, that's what prompted this whole item to come back and say it's not right. But it wasn't right in the very first place, whomever combined the total payment together. So that was done prior to me being on council. I don't remember what the utility bills look like. I just open it up and pay it. But at the time, probably what I was used to seeing was a total amount due, writing that check out, just like many of our residents may do. When we look at it, if there's something that's not right, I'm sure they're going to question. But we created a panic, and here we are now.
Mr. Santos, you had something to add?
Just with regard to the franchise fee, the franchise fee was directed to be included in the RFP by council. It was in the RFP. It was included in the contract because it was directed by council to be in the contract. It was not included by staff. It was not included by Mr. Lopez. It was in there because that was the direction of the council that the city now charge that fee, which is true, it had not been charging previously. But based on that direction, that's how the item went out for RFP, and that's the reason why it was included in the franchise contract.
Roy, I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you.
So again, it wasn't a sneaky move. It was provided through an RFP. 3 agencies responded to it, and we chose one, knowingly having them have that within their contract because it was a request of the RFP process. So it wasn't a sneaky move, it was there. And we've heard it before, at least I have because I sit next to you, is that I didn't read it, I don't do my research. So again, many of us may not do the research that we need to do to make sure that the items that we speak on are actually there, and that when we vote on it, that we don't run away from it, we actually meet it head on and say, this is what needs to be done. We need to be transparent. So thank you.
At this time, I will go out for public comment in regards to this item. Is there any public comment on the phone? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber. Please state your name for the record.
Japjit. It's been a long conversation, so I'm gonna go back to a couple things. I know Mr. Sama said he wanted to speak with staff last time before having a discussion today. And I actually looked at the last meeting just to see how that conversation went down. And Mr. Sama had said to Chris, I will contact you to set up an appointment with you and staff. To which Mr. Lopez responded that he was just sending an email to Monica to reach out. So I don't know if that email was canceled. I don't know how communication works between everybody. And that's not for me to pick on anybody. I just want to put that on the record because that was there. And I wish that conversation would have went down because now we're behind again. So Mr. Sumner is raising concerns on the franchise fee. And Mr. Santos, you described it as a reasonable estimate of the measure of the franchise. And when council approved this, staff believed that that percentage was about 15. It's an estimate of the value of the city's franchise, which provides exclusive access to Gilton to the residents and its roadways. And what exactly does that mean? Like, what does this franchise fee do? Why do we need it?
Sure.
Can I get time pause, please, as well, in Mr. Santos' response? Thank you.
Sure. For the franchise fee, under the law, it's required that it be reasonably proportionate to a reasonably proportionate estimate of the value of the franchise. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of guide on how you determine that. Some of the language as you look at things like exclusive access, number of consumers that you're providing exclusive access to, the fact that you're providing no other solid waste provider can come into the city of Livingston and provide solid waste services, only Gilton can. So that's generally right now the state of the law on how you determine what the reasonable value, reasonable estimate of the value of the franchise. And looking at the number of residents that the city of Livingston has, a number of customers, I think it's a little over 3,500 if I remember correctly, given the fact that it is an entirely exclusive, meaning no, some jurisdictions may have more than one provider. Livingston doesn't, it's only Gilton. Okay. We believe that 15% was a fair estimate of the value of the franchise. It's only an estimate, it's
Right.
not an exact calculation.
Okay, but what is the purpose of it? Like, why do we need it? What does it support?
It was a decision by the council to include. It's not required by law, so the council can, if they so choose, defer it, remove it. It's up to the council. It's just a tool available to jurisdictions. What I will say is it's fairly common. In fact, when I came to Livingston, this was the only jurisdiction that I've worked with that didn't have a franchise fee. Most every specialized service usually has a franchise fee, whether it's solid waste, if you have an outside service provider for water, things of that nature. It's fairly common and with public entities, including cities, counties, and special districts.
Right. Okay. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that we're one of the first places that didn't have one. That being said, if we've never had one in the past and we've been able to provide services, if we don't need it, again, I don't know where the money's at, but if we don't need it, I would like for us to probably not have it just because it's an extra charge to the residents. And the meeting that you mentioned, Ms. Soto, a couple months back, when this came up, and that's when you had initially called out the issue with the fee. Mr. Lopez had mentioned that if council wants to bring this back and cancel it, they can. And so that's still an option, I'm assuming, legally. And again, I don't know where the money's being spent, but if we don't need it, I don't see a need to continue and pay that. As for the admin fee, if we're paying it already anyway, and it's coming out of the general fund, the city's paying for the money. And so I feel like this should need to be moved on at some point. And if that means canceling the franchise fee, if we don't need it, and including an admin fee that's already being paid for, maybe that's an option. I know ARPA funds are gonna come up. I don't know if it's the next item right after this or the item after. Did some quick research on it, and it looks like economic assistance to households is a possibility. I don't know if you can maybe couple some ARPA money to help cover the cost of this, like kind of front load it. If we end up approving an admin fee and it's a burden to residents initially, maybe use ARPA money to help cover some of those bills. Don't know if it's an option, just want to throw it out. Because if we're already paying for this admin fee, I don't see why we're just going to keep not doing something about it. At least make it clear to the residents that it's being spent. What do you want to do? And again, as for that franchise fee, if it's never been used before and we don't really need it, I don't see why we keep it. And so I asked that maybe get some direction on canceling that if it's not needed. Thank you.
What are the ramifications, if any, with a contract with Jilton? They would have to have notice to come before this council and appeal it? I mean, I don't remember what their contract says.
So if I understand the comment, I don't think the issue was to cancel the franchise agreement. It was more the franchise fee, which it's a fee of the city. So at any time, the city can suspend the charging of that fee. It's intended to be a fee charged to the service provider, not to the end user. Unfortunately, it tends to get passed on to the end user, which is our residents. But majority of the council can always choose to suspend that amount and not charge it. That's at the discretion of the council at any time. And that would not affect the validity of the franchise agreement with Jilton.
Is there any additional public comment in the chamber in regards to this item? Okay. Anybody else? All right, so I'm bringing it back to the dais at 9:12. Council, any additional questions, comments, suggestions, motions, direction in regards to this item? Clarification? Postpone? Bring it back next year? Something? Bring it back next meeting in a month? And then I just remember something that was mentioned as a public comment in regards to the ARPA funds, and I know it's coming up. Ideally, something to think about, because this is a cost that is going to continue on every month, every year, moving forward, and ARPA funds or funds might only become available for a year, 6 months, or 2 years. Then those funds are going to be gone. Then there's nothing to cover that additional expense. So sometimes with things like this, we want to think about long term, like if it's going to be an ongoing expense, to think about how we're going to be able to cover that expense long term. It might work maybe for 6 months or a year, but it's just something to. That is a difficult part about any specific funds that are only there for a limited amount of time. Is not something that is going to come back again, potentially, but I just wanted to add that to it.
Mr. Mayor, I also add, since the ARPA fund, I believe, and Mr. Lopez can correct me, but I believe at the last meeting, we did find out that the city had previously requested to use ARPA funds for solid waste, and that request was denied. This may be different because it is a there is an administrative component to it, so doesn't mean that we can't request it again, but I believe in the update that was the information that Mr. Chavarria had provided.
Council, direction, motions, because I do believe if there's no motions, no direction, then this just,
How about we do away with the franchise fee and incorporate the administrative fee?
And that's precisely why I wanted to meet with staff, see if there's alternatives. But unfortunately, that's not the way it worked out the last 2 weeks. Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, I wasn't going to say anything, but since Mayor Pro Tem continues to bring it up, I pulled the meeting myself as Japjeet did, and I'm going to send this to the council so you all have the video yourselves and you can listen to the audio. But during the course of the meeting, Gurpal stated to me, Chris, I will contact you to set up an appointment to meet with staff. And my response was, okay, I was just sending the email to Monica to reach out to you, but that's fine.
That's not what I said. I said,
And I'm happy to send it to the
I
council.
said, Mr. Lopez, please reach out to me. I'd like to set up a meeting with you and your staff. I said to reach out to me.
I'm sending the video to the council, and the council can just see for what that's worth, because I don't appreciate being told that I was unresponsive.
so council, is there something you want to add?
Yeah, if I, and maybe this will help for clarity. So I had previously been directed by a majority of council to bring the administrative fee forward. If council would like to decouple those two things, meaning that you don't want to combine them and do them at the same time, meaning the rate and the administrative fee, or if council would like to provide alternative direction. I just want to make sure that I'm being responsive to council. The intent was to try to save resources by combining them. You know, I just want to make sure that I'm not dropping the ball on an item that council previously gave me direction on.
Thank you. So we have at least 2 weeks before the next meeting. I do believe that combining those, or when you come back, combining both would be ideal, just to save time and, you know, just, I mean, there's really, just to be specific one more time, there's nothing we can do about the Gilton contract, because that's already been given out, has been established. But coming back with both would probably be the best scenario, instead of investing time in doing two separate studies. And so council, I do believe there's two ways we can go about this. One, we move forward. We still have 2 more weeks. There's 2 weeks where meetings can happen if it's, you know, tomorrow, or, I mean, I don't know, the next day, before Mr. Santos gets too ahead of himself, and then get those questions answered. And then that way we don't have to hold this any longer. And then again, in 2 weeks, whatever this majority of council decides, one way or the other, let's just keep moving forward, but we're not holding on for something for too long, you know. We just gotta be responsive and, you know, it's unfortunate that there is unclarity. I mean, I do remember part of the conversation. I mean, the video is there. We can go back, but it makes no sense to keep on going back and forth, one way or the other, where, you know, if that meeting can happen this week sometime, get those questions answered, and then hopefully that will give Santos, Mr. Santos, enough time to come back in 2 weeks or so with the information so we can move forward. But then again, that is what I'm thinking right now. So I guess that would be a motion to move forward with this item. Unless you guys have other questions, unless somebody else has a different motion or different direction. But at least I'm proposing something.
I have a question, just out of curiosity. Gurpal, what information are you seeking from staff that can't be addressed so that we hear it out in public?
No, I wanted to get with the staff along with the city manager because I had some questions. And they're too in detail to be asked. The staff is not here other than the city manager. I get it. You should not be talking to staff directly. That's why I had said, Mr. Lopez, please contact me. I'd like to get with you and your staff. And the response I got was, and I would not appreciate it, send an email. I do not send emails. City managers can definitely reach out to the council members to set up a meeting with the staff. And that's not right. All I did was say, Mr. Lopez, I'd like to meet with you and your staff regarding this item. That's all I asked for. That's all I asked. Nothing more. And I don't understand when Mr. Lopez, somebody wants something, they call, I pick up the phone, we have conversations. But when I want something, why can't they just actually make the same phone call and have a conversation? I don't understand that.
Sorry, we already closed but sorry.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Wallace, go ahead.
Is it possible to have a special meeting here in the chambers before the 2 weeks is up with the staff, that all the council members can ask questions and get this out in the public? That would be my question.
Whatever the council wants.
Would that satisfy the mayor pro tem? That we have it in public rather than just, that way we're all
No,
involved?
there was some questions that I had for staff. I don't believe might be, I just need to talk to them first before I talk over here. That's why. I had reached out to Mr. Santos, as you understand. And it was said the best thing is to sit with staff. That's why I wanted to sit with staff. And I don't understand the problem. A 20-plus year council member can't get a meeting with city manager and staff. I don't get that. It's just plain wrong. No. I asked, please contact me, get with your staff, contact me when we can get together. I don't understand that. That a council member can't make that request to the city manager, please get with your staff, let's get together and have a conversation. You can't even have that? You know how that makes you feel? Like, hey, I just asked the city manager a meeting with staff and it was shined away. Hey, no, it's not important enough for me to call you on this one. But when I want something, I'm gonna call you 5 times in a day. That's just not right.
And just probably a comment, and just to be fair with everyone, I mean, I think that just you know, there's people that ask to meet with me sometimes, and I'm busy or whatever. I mean, and then they call again. I'm like, please just call me again. Just remind me again. Send me another text, because if my oversight, you know, and just to be fair, probably, you know, we as council members, we could probably send, I mean, it's happened to me before. I'm like, I'm sending a text, it's just a reminder, you know, about this, and that. I was like, oh, you know, I mean, but let's just, I mean, we just keep going back and forth. I mean, it's 9:25 already. We've been stuck in this item for about 45 minutes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, we're not getting things done. So we have a problem. So can someone propose a solution? I already proposed a solution. If there's no more questions, I already made a motion to move forward with this item, and then staff, or whatever you want to call it, city manager's office, come together with Mayor Pro Tem. You guys have 3 days, 2 days. I mean, it can probably happen tomorrow. Get it done. Let's move forward. Give direction. Give enough time to Roy to come back in 2 weeks, and we move forward. I feel like we're already doing something that we're not supposed to be doing, but I'm supporting it. You know, and let's just move forward. We're just not moving forward. So I have a motion on the floor. If there's no more questions, if there's no more positive comments other than what has already been said, let's move forward. If there's a second, if not, then this dies. That's it. So I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Mayor, can you please repeat what your motion is for? What are you moving forward with? What component are you moving forward with?
As the item says, giving direction regarding of the proposed increase solid, let me go back to what so the recommendation is this item was included for the city council to have a discussion and provide direction regarding notices of the proposed increase to the administrative fee and solid waste collection rates for a majority protest process in accordance with Proposition 218. So right now, what Roy said that he needs is that for council to give majority approval to provide both, to come back with both the franchise fee and the admin fee. Is that correct?
The admin fee and the solid waste.
Solid waste, yes. To come back.
And I would bring that back to council at the second meeting in September. The notices require a pretty significant amount of detail in order to be transparent to the end users. So the goal would be to bring it back at the second meeting in September.
So we're now approving something to get done and just, it's going to go out to the public. It will come back, you know, with the notices, with the text, and council needs to approve it, look at it, approve it, if not, change it or whatever it is. But, you know, there's just, so that is the motion.
I want to say move forward with the rates, but in the meantime, it would be appreciated though, because this is one of the problems that we have, is that there's not true transparency when council members want to meet with staff and they can't already, and I get it, staff's not here to answer the questions, but you're not opposed to having another council member present during that time so that we know what kinds of conversations are taking place, or what kind of meeting are you requesting to set up? Because it sounds as if this is strictly only a Gopal request to meet with staff.
Every council member has a right to request meeting with staff, going through the city manager, of course. If somebody wants to meet at the same time, or they can have their own meeting, that's their prerogative. But to me, I'm sorry, but the way this was handled, it was not right. I'm sorry. That motion that's being made, I strongly ask everybody vote no.
So there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? So there's no second. This motion dies for lack of a second. Is there any other motions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that we bring it forward the first available meeting after the Mayor Pro Tem has his meeting with the staff as he so desires. And that would be my motion. The first available meeting after.
And
the
I will
Pro Tem.
second that.
I think that was exactly what I said. That's exactly what I proposed, but
I just worked.
I said if it's important enough, the meeting could happen tomorrow, and then we can bring this back at the next meeting. But, okay, so there's a motion on the floor. There's a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace.
Yes.
Councilmember Soto.
To be clear, I also put that motion forward to move forward, so yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Remember, it is after the meeting. If a meeting doesn't happen, it's not coming forward. Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
All right, next item.
Can I request a short break, please?
Yes, 5-minute break. We'll be back at 9:30. This is break at 9:31, be back at 9:36. Calling the meeting back to order at 9:37. Next, we have item 23, discussion and direction for the use of remaining American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. Who's going to start this?
Happy, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
All right, Happy, go ahead.
Can you speak up a little bit louder, please? Go ahead.
Yes, so this item is in discussion and direction for the use of the remaining American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds. The recommendation is staff is seeking direction from the council on the use of the remaining American Rescue Plan Act funds, totaling around $656,392. So a little bit of background. On March 11th of 2021, President Joe Biden signed into law a nearly 1.9 trillion coronavirus bill known as the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, also known as ARPA. The law represents the sixth COVID-19 recovery measure that Congress has passed since March of 2020. Local governments across the country received a total of $130.2 billion, including $65.1 billion to counties and $65.1 billion to cities and towns. California counties received around $7.67 billion. California cities received around $8.22 billion. The Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, which is a local government share under ARPA, must be used within a certain limit prescribed in law and U.S. Department of Treasury regulations. So the funds must be obligated by December 31st of 2024 and expended by December 31 of 2026. The funds may not be spent in extraordinary pension deposits to pay prior obligations, may not be used to replenish rainy day funds or financial reserves, and may not be used for debt obligation or a non-federal match for other federal programs. In the staff report, I have listed eligible uses, funding, and this is coming straight from the CSLRF guidelines, which is responding to public health and negative economic impact of the pandemic, providing premium pay to essential workers, providing government services to extent of revenue loss during the pandemic, making necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, disaster relief, surface transportation, and community development block grants. The city of Livingston was allocated $3,563,444,000 in ARPA funds, and we have already spent and allocated the funds as follows on the staff report. A new water well, $2 million. Employee stipends, $343,916. Ripper and tractor was purchased for $188,132, and wastewater repairs, which is $375. And that was emergency repair that we had at the wastewater treatment plant. So staff is requesting council to provide direction on preferred use of the remaining funds.
Thank you, Happy. So I'm looking at one of the items that is eligible for funding is making necessary investments in water infrastructure, well, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. But I think based on the current needs of the city, I would feel comfortable making a recommendation to use this $656,392 towards an investment in water infrastructure, which I think we highly need right now. And so if we can have that, and then next time when those items come back to us, we already have some funding allocated towards water infrastructure. We do have a lot of needs, but I think based on our list of items, that would be my recommendation to to move forward and use the $656,392 towards investment in water infrastructure. Council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
you read my mind. I think that's it.
I'm a psychic.
Huh?
I'm a psychic now.
Oh,
That is a
good.
dangerous place to be.
Yeah, but that's a perfect place. I was gonna suggest that as well. If we couldn't agree on that, I was gonna suggest as a purchase of fire equipment, but water, I think, takes higher priority. I think every council member is gonna agree with that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council?
Yes, I agree, it should go to water.
Also agree.
So I'm going to be the one. I am in agreement. Our water is the necessary item here, allowable for the funding. However, based on the recent circumstance, and we don't know where we're heading, but we do see the big picture of our own fire department. So with both items being of equal importance because of the situation that we've been placed in, I would recommend that $328,196 go to water infrastructure, specifically towards the well 8, as well as the purchase of a new fire engine. Because in the big picture, as we move forward with fire department, because we haven't heard much lately, but I'd like to request that later. But split it down the middle, because all of us here on council know that both items are of equal importance. And we see the big picture of how things are gonna pan out for the city of Livingston, that we take care of our infrastructure and set us up to have our own fire department. And we start that by buying our own equipment, or at least the process of purchasing our own equipment.
At this time, I will go out for public comment. Is there anyone on the phone with comments, questions in regards to this item? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber. Anyone in the chamber? Please come forward, state your name.
Japjit, just question for everybody, because even though you recommended a split, you still said you want money going towards water. Is there anything specific that this money could be put into right now, or is it just generally we want to have this money allocated so that we can spend it on water?
So there are treasury guidelines and essentially law that stipulates what could be utilized with this funding. Happy did mention some of those items during his staff report. In the staff report as well, there's some information there as well. All the items that the council has discussed are eligible expenditures.
Right, but I don't think, I know you said well 8. I think you had specifically brought up well 8, but I don't think anybody else specifically mentioned where exactly the money would go. It was just towards water infrastructure as a whole. And so, again, I'm not saying there's an issue with that. Obviously, money needs to be put towards water. I'm just asking if we have, besides if there's any more specific on well 8 of what we'd want to see it go to. Because even in Happy's report, I believe he just mentioned like water, broadband, and sewer infrastructure. I think that's what was listed on it. But are there any ideas right now, whether that's even from staff's office, of where they'd want this to be spent right away?
I've met with a few council members about this, and we've talked about it. I think investments in water make sense. I think investments in fire department make sense as well. So I think the council's right on the same page with the things that staff would recommend.
Okay, and then I know we have, we had presented last time a bunch of funds that are available, and I know there's going to be something brought back in September on how to move forward with the water issue. If we decide to put this money towards a fire engine now, or just other fire equipment, is that smart long-term based off of how much money we're projecting to get if a fire tax gets approved? Like, do we think it's good to invest now, or do we think the water issue is so drastic that all of this goes there? I don't necessarily expect an answer from anybody, just something to think about. if this money is good to front load for fire now, I think that's a great thing to do. But if you think that we're gonna be okay in the long run, just based off of projections, then yeah, I don't see any issue with why this all goes to water. Thank you.
Mayor, I can provide just a brief context as to why it makes sense to potentially allocate some to an apparatus. The purchase of an apparatus, fire engine, fire truck, quint, typically takes about 18 to 24 months to manufacture and produce. And so you're talking about, a 2-year lead time. And so when you're placing an order for that, having ample amount of lead time on the front side helps ensure that the city's in a position to get that truck or that engine, with 2 years down the road. So that's why, it would make some sense to at least get ahead of it with time.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment in the chamber regards to this item? Seeing now, bringing it back to a dais on 9:48. Council, so, based on recommendations, I think that at this time, we should allocate it to water infrastructure without being specific to a specific well, because we should wait until we get that report and recommendations back from engineering and public works and staff. So that would help us better understand where we need funding at specifically, because we don't have that information yet. So that's where I'm at in regards to these items. Anything else, Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I think Councilwoman Soto's point is absolutely correct as well. Fire truck is a need, but I think if we have to pick a priority one, we are just one well away from low pressures and everything. So I think we need to put every bit of resource we can into water. I agree with you that just put the money in there, and if it means getting some projects started earlier and paying for it with it, I think it's worthwhile. So I think that's the best way. Just put the money into the water.
Anyone else? So at this time, I will make a motion to allocate $656,392 towards water infrastructure without being specific until we get more information back from engineering, public works, and staff.
I will second it.
So we have a motion on the floor by myself, a second by Mayor Pro Tem. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace,
Yes.
Councilmember Soto.
I still do believe that both are equally important. We did have a presentation last week about the water. So knowing that it's equally important, but the city deserves clean water. We also deserve fire services. So again, I will say yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra,
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Next item, item number 24, discussion and direction regarding the cancellation of recruitment services agreement with Bob Murray and Associates for city manager recruitment services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to request a slightly different direction. In light of changing circumstances, the city attorney's office would like direction regarding suspending the agreement for recruitment services with Bob Murray and Associates and not canceling the agreement. It would allow things in the city to without needing to cancel the agreement at this time. Part of, the one thing that I will share with the public may know or may not is, certain items due to California law discussed in closed session can't be discussed in open session, so there may be limitations on the council on what they can and cannot say to, or questions they can answer from the public. It's not a means of evasion. It's just the requirements under the law that limits what can and cannot be said. But with that change of language, the city attorney's office would request that direction from council.
Thank you. Council, any questions, comments?
How much work has already been provided by this firm?
At this point, my understanding and talking briefly with Ms. Cruz, the commencement has not begun, so we're effectively they're at the starting gate. They haven't exited the starting gate, is my understanding. Lack of a better word.
And you're speaking of a suspension, and for how long are you thinking? Or is your recommendation?
My recommendation at this time would be 6 months. But it can always come back to council before the 6 months to restart it if necessary.
And you did mention what things, there are things in the city that needs to be resolved. Please clarify.
Unfortunately, given the limitations of California law and disclosure of closed session items, I cannot clarify at this time.
But the request for proposal was made in open session.
Correct, but in order to...
That this wasn't discussed in closed session.
In order to answer your question, it would require me to disclose information that I received in closed session, which is confidential, and I cannot do that. It would be a violation of the law and my rules of professional responsibility.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Wallace.
is there a cost for this to the city for a suspension?
That is unclear at this time. We would reach out to Bob Murray to see if they would seek any compensation under the current agreement.
And so also to have a clearer understanding, staff or city attorney could not move on something because they haven't had direction by council. So it's not that nothing has been done in regards to this, but it's because this has not been discussed by council to be able to give direction. So this is why this item is before the council to give direction to staff, or in this case to Mr. Santos or RC to look into what has been done, if anything, and just to kind of get some feedback from Bob Murray, and then bring back that information if required.
So this item was brought before this council. It was, how long ago was this? The conversation was going out for RFP. We got some responses back. You did your research, wanting to spend the most because they had a better rating and such, where they were going to cost us $40,000. So we did that process. Gurpal was in agreement without doing research. Councilmember Roth was in agreement as well. So the whole process was already started. That was a council decision to go out for RFP for the recruitment process. So why are we canceling? Why are we entertaining that again? Because that's been brought up a few times, because this council, we've had Mr. Lopez with us for a year and a half, doing the work of a city manager. We've had one performance evaluation on him where there was.
Sorry, Councilmember Soto, we can't discuss the contents of the performance evaluation. That was conducted in closed session, and it is a personnel matter.
Oh, I agree. Wasn't gonna share any information, what was on the evaluations, but Mr. Lopez is still with us. So going out for RP didn't make any sense to me back then, and now with all that was said for this council, with the exception of me, to agree to go out for RFP, and now request this to be on the agenda to council first, and now it's suspension of it. We're gonna agree to that after going out for RFP? I mean, it's all of this. We just keep circling items. What is it? You wanted this firm. You wanted an RFP. Jose, you wanted an RFP process. For what reason?
So the question before us is whether or not this is not the first time that council has to consider not necessarily canceling, but now it's suspending. This is not the first time that Livingston City Council, actually we're not even rescinding the decision that we made before. And you being on the council, you were part of rescinding a decision that we made before in the previous council. So this is not the first time. And you already know that we cannot use information to answer your questions. You're just asking questions that cannot be answered just to try and make something look like it's not. So you were part of the closed session. You already know why we're doing this. You already know why we're bringing this item back on a recommendation from legal. And normally when legal makes a recommendation is to prevent the city from paying additional costs, additional fines. So you already know the answer to your questions. And you already know that we cannot share that information. If you want to share that information, you do it yourself. But don't ask the rest of the council, don't ask me to share information that I'm not supposed to share because it was part of a closed session. You already know the answer to the question. You're just trying to make us look like we don't want to answer. But we don't want to answer because we cannot answer. Because that is information from closed session, that is privileged information. You already know that. You're just trying to make something out of nothing for people that don't know how this works. Yeah. And they're barely learning how this works. And we're explaining that we cannot share information from closed session, and we're bringing this item back because potentially it can cost the city more money. So it's not that we're spending the money, we're trying to save the city money.
Mr. Mayor, are you going to open this to the public?
Do you have additional information before I go to public questions?
Other than to say that everybody knows, the five of us, including the attorney, knows this is the result of a privileged information we cannot discuss. It is there. Everybody knows it. And to say anything otherwise, it just doesn't, it's just trying to make others look bad when there's no reason for it. To me, I don't have a problem with suspension until we get, further clarification. So, but other than that, if you want to open to the public, please do so, but I don't want to get into any more of why we're doing this, because when everybody knows that we are, and the attorney has explained that we cannot, it's privileged information.
At this time, I will go out for public comment. Is there any public comment, questions in regards to this item? Anyone on the phone? 10:02, bringing it back to the chamber, 10:02.
Quick question, not directly related to how you're going to move forward. It was just something that was brought up, like kind of in the conversation. Performance evaluation that was conducted on the city manager was done in closed session, and so the contents of that obviously are not available. Does that ever get unsealed? Like, can we ever see what that evaluation was and what it like came out of it?
Unfortunately, no. It's protected information, both because it's in closed session, but then too, it would be a violation of Mr. Lopez's right to privacy as a personnel matter.
So that's something that never gets released. It's across the board.
It should, in an ideal world, no.
Okay.
It's something that should never be released. It should be confidential. Unless the only exceptions are typically if you're dealing with charges of some sort of wrongdoing by someone, and then potentially that information could be part of a name-clearing hearing or something like that where it's disclosed to the public. But it has to be at the permission of the individual that holds that privilege, and that individual is Mr. Lopez or any other individual whose evaluation is being discussed or personnel matter is being discussed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments, questions in the chamber? Seeing none, bringing it back to our dais at 10:03.
So just to be clear, I understand what happens in closed session. I also understand what happens outside of closed session and some of the reports that have been made so that everyone knows. So when Gopal states that everyone knows this, yeah, there are people outside of this council that have information that shouldn't. So to be accused of not knowing and potentially trying to get people in trouble, those weren't your exact words, but trying to create a scene, it's not me. So some of these items were brought forward prior to this with previous city managers, and to tell me that there's attorney-client privilege and trying to get people in trouble. There's been times before where Jose yourself disagreed with the recommendations of an attorney, and you went ahead and sided with previous city managers to potentially get this council in trouble. It's on record. So with that being said, there are rumors around this city of leakage of closed session items. And the only way they could get that information is through someone on council. And I said it in my report earlier. Residents are concerned with city manager talks. These are residents. Someone's talking, it's not me.
Council, any other questions, comments, directions, motions?
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to suspend for 6 months.
So we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
First and a second by Councilmember Roth. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth.
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace.
Yes.
Councilmember Soto.
Just to clarify, you did say 6 months, up to 6 months suspension? In the meantime, Christopher still serves as our interim.
Mr. Mayor, we're getting off topic now.
I just want clarification. We're not
So-
going out for RFP.
So clarification is 6 months. That was the motion.
That wasn't part of the motion, but that was part of the conversation.
That was part of the motion. Thank you. Roll call, please. Continue with the roll call.
So Member Soto,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samar,
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes,
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
thank you. Item number 25, discussion and direction on itinerant vendor application and permit fee.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this should be a brief conversation. The council had the second reading of the itinerant vendor tonight. This item before you is seeking council direction on whether there's a preference for administering the fee. There is an application fee that's included in the ordinance change, or in the municipal code. And there is also a permit fee that's included in the ordinance. So the question for the council is there a preference for having an application fee and a permit fee in one single charge? Or is there a desire to have a separate application fee and a separate permit fee for the itinerant vendor adjustment that was adopted by council tonight? That concludes my staff report, Mayor. Happy to answer any questions. I should say that based on the council direction, we would then develop the potential cost of that fee and then bring that back to council. So this is really just seeking council direction on what the council's preference is for this fee. Thank you, Mayor.
Council, questions, suggestions?
I noticed on this.
Yes, you may speak.
This
Go
is,
ahead.
I am speaking, so thank you.
And just
Yeah,
as,
item
and just,
number 11
excuse me,
Item number 11.
just as a reminder, you should ask, because I am running the meeting, you should always ask for permission to speak or ask questions, just as a friendly reminder, because you never do so. Yes, you may speak. Go ahead.
And just as a reminder, I will let you know to not take a tone with me. And previously, were pointing your finger at me. We'll go back and watch it live. I don't appreciate it either. The amount of this comes to behaviors of us nitpicking and more divisive. So as long as you treat me in a manner that's disrespectful, count on it. I don't tolerate it either.
So you should
So
start
item number
by
11.
asking to speak.
Item number 11, under the application process, talks about a vehicle to be used. Is there something in there, I didn't read it, that calls for current registration and insurance on vehicles that are being used by the applicant? I don't know if that was supposed to be included or if it got overlooked.
Providing vehicle insurance is usually not a requirement. I mean, the council could have added that in if it's so desired, but it's not required by law.
When we talk about liability and their parking on city streets, there was also another area where it asks for criminal record, fingerprinting and all that, but it specifically talks about drug usage and everything else, but it does not mention, here we go. It's under, and I don't, if this is just a draft, it's under section 2-4.050, permit investigation and issuance. Under item 3, it talks about misdemeanors involving fraud, narcotics, but it doesn't make any mention that they should, if they are a registered sex offender. Because if we do have vendors on our streets, if we're looking at criminal behaviors, we want to include that as well. That would be my suggestion. because again, we're about the health and safety of our communities and our children.
Just for clarity, Councilmember Soto, the ordinance has already been approved by council. So if you'd like us to make amendments, we can bring back amendments if there's something missing. But that was the component in the consent item, the second reading. So the ordinance will become effective in 30 days after tonight. But the council will approve the ordinance as currently drafted.
Okay. That's why I was saying if it was still in draft form, if there could be amendments made.
There could have been, yes, but the item was approved on the consent calendar. But I'd be happy to talk to you about items if you have specific concerns as you're addressing now, and we can see about if a majority of the council is open to it and making amendments to the ordinance to have them included.
So that's what we're about. We're about amending ordinances and making changes in policies. But those are some of the areas where I noticed that could use a little bit more help. But with that, my council direction would be to charge a separate application fee and a permit fee.
And then in regards to, then I'm assuming, and then again, I don't know, Mr. Becerra, maybe you can answer this question. When someone is fingerprinted, anything will, like, include, if someone was convicted of, yeah, so I'm thinking that it would probably be, something like that would probably already be included in the background check, or?
Yes, when they do the background check or fingerprint card or live scan, it'll pop up if he's a sex offender, 290, or any type of probation, parole type stuff.
So with the report then, okay, so thank you. That answers the question. So I don't think there would be a need to go back and add anything to it, because being able to get fingerprinted, that will come up. I mean, and then it would be in the report. So it would not make sense to go back and do more work than it's already needed, because it will show up. Okay. Council, anything else?
Are you going to open it to the public?
Yeah, eventually.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, to me, for me, either one or two, it's all the one and the same. So I'm okay with either one.
At this time, I will go out for public comment. Is there anyone on the phone at 10:15? Anyone on the phone with public comment in regards to this item? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber. Anyone in the chamber? Seeing none, bringing it back to a dais at 10:15. Council, any other questions, comments, suggestions, recommendations, motions? Discussion, direction? Yes, go ahead.
I like number one, charging one fee, the permit fee and the application fee. It just makes it easier.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I will second that.
Was that a
Formal motion, yes.
So I have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Roth, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth?
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace?
Yes.
Councilmember Soto?
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 4-1.
Thank you. Next, we have council direction on future agenda items. Anything, council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
it's been brought up numerous times about the YouTube for our meetings. I know we have audio that is being recorded and being saved. However, our equipment back there, you could put, and the gentleman that's doing it right now, has a bunch, maybe 2 or 3 years worth of our meetings. If, and this is Mayor, Councilwoman Soto brings it up a lot. If the city or the council desired, you could put a thumb drive in his equipment and have a complete video with audio of everything that is being transpired here. And it could be set on a thumb drive within the city limits, or if Councilwoman Soto wanted it, she could put a thumb drive in and be given one every night at her home. I don't know, I know Atwater does YouTube, they only do the recordings. I didn't research any other cities because there was no need, but we do have that capability, and it would be something that the city might want to look at or consider. That was just my comments for a future meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, meeting adjourned at 10.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Thank you. So tonight on the agenda was a presentation to the Garcia family. I don't know where we are with the process, because I know that it was discussed at a previous meeting on how we can put into a policy or some type of a selection of families that we'd like to recognize. I know that that had to do with street naming, park naming, naming buildings. If that hasn't been brought here so that we can do that and put that out for the community to help select recognitions of and honoring of families that are in Livingston by way of parks or however the families want to do that. I don't know if that was ever came back to council. I know it was something, and tonight we did have an item that honored the Garcia family. And again, that was a council choice. It was a very good council choice, but again, I think the discussion was to put that out to the community and have a process by which we can choose or have the community choose. So if that can be brought back so that it can actually be put into some type of a process.
Anything else? Seeing none, meeting adjourned 10:19.